Hare Krishna, welcome everyone to our Caitanya Caritāmrta overview class. We'll begin with our prayers. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानो सुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी निति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna, welcome everyone. We are discussing from Chaitanya Charitāmrita Adi Leela. We are in chapter 12.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram.
So, in this chapter, Kaviraj Goswami is describing the various sub-branches of the Advaita branch. As the discussion began in the 9th chapter, Kaviraj Goswami compared Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to a tree of devotional service. He's a trunk of the tree of devotional service, and he's the gardener himself. He's the Mali, and he's the trunk himself. He's a Skanda. And he watered this tree of devotional service, Bhakti Kalpa Vriksha, with his desire, with the water of his desire. Mahaprabhu wanted to inundate the entire world with love of God, and he wanted to distribute the fruits of love of God. So that's why he is watering this tree of devotional service with his own desire. And the two prominent branches of this tree are Nityanand Prabhu and Advaita Acharya. So in the previous chapter, Nityanand Prabhu's branch is described in detail. The various devotees who are the associates of Lord Nityananda, they are described in the 11th chapter. And then in this 12th chapter, Kaviraj Goswami is describing the branches and the sub-branches of the Advaita branch and the Gadadhar branch. So Advaita Acharya is the one of the two main branches, Nityananda Prabhu and Advaita Acharya. So we have discussed earlier the three branches of this Advaita tree. They are the three sons of Advaita Acharya, who are the devotees, Achyutananda, Krishna Mishra, and Sri Gopal. These are the three devotees, three sons of Advaita Acharya who were the devotees, great devotees. And there were three another sons who became Mayavadis. They are not included in the branch of Advaita Acharya. So then the fourth branch which we are discussing is Kamalakant Vishwas. So another very, very confidential servant of Sri Advaita Acharya. He was born in a Brahmana family, and then when Paramananda Puri went from Navadvip to Jagannath Puri, he took this person Kamalakant Vishwas with him. And Kaviraj Goswami describes a story about this Kamalakant Vishwas. At one time, so when Kamalakant came to Navadvip, Kamalakant was there in Navadvip. He was a secretary of Advaita Acharya. And when he moved to Jagannath Puri, once he sent a letter to Pratap Rudra Maharaj telling that this Advaita Acharya, he is none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But what had happened was this Advaita Acharya So Kamalakant Vishwasi writes in that letter that Advaitacharya, he has incurred a debt of 300 rupees. So I'm just trying to liquidate that debt. And he described who is Advaitacharya. So please consider my request. Please liquidate that debt. So somehow this letter reached the hands of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu became so angry. He said, see, Kamalakant Vishwas has established that Advaitacharya is the Supreme Lord. There's no doubt about it. It is all good. But what he has done, he has brought him to a level of a beggar. And he is telling that, oh, please liquidate the debt of Advaitacharya. This is not right. And Prabhupada writes, this is a Mayavad. Mayavadis, they say there is Daridra Narayan, the Supreme Lord, he has become a beggar. So Mahaprabhu was very angry. And he said, from today on, do not allow Kamalakant Vishwas to come in front. When Kamalakant Vishwas, he heard this, he became so very sorrowful, so very sad. And Advaitacharya, when he heard this, he became very happy. He became very pleased. So Advaitacharya, he goes to Kamalakant Vishwas and tells, look, you are really fortunate because you are blessed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You have received the special mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu never chastised me. I wanted to be chastised by Mahaprabhu. I wanted to be recognized as servant of Mahaprabhu, but he was always giving me all the respect. Advaitacharya is telling this to Kamalakant Vishwas. He said, therefore I devised a plan. I started speaking from Yoga Vashishta because Advaitacharya was a very senior personality. He was 50 years elder than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was like his, the brother of his spiritual master, very great devotee. So Mahaprabhu would give all respect to Advaitacharya. And Advaitacharya didn't like it because he knew that Mahaprabhu is a supreme personality and he wanted to be accepted as servant of Mahaprabhu. Krishna Das Abhimane Ananda Sindhu Brahma Shiva Sheshiyar Nahi Pai Bindu. The bliss of becoming servant of Krishna, it is unlimited. Therefore, Advaitacharya was not so happy when Mahaprabhu was giving him so much respect. He was, putting him at the level of his spiritual master. Advaitacharya wanted to be recognized as servant. That is the glory of being servant. Our condition is we have never experienced the happiness of being servant because in this world, everybody comes with a mentality of being a master. And in this world, servant means exploitation, abuse, no rights, no freedom. That's why nobody wants to be servant. But in spiritual world, all the great personalities, they want to become servant. Ananta Shesha wants to become servant. Brahma wants to become servant. In the material spiritual world, everybody is a servant. In material world also, greatest of the personalities want to become servant because there is unlimited bliss in the service of Krishna. Brahma, Shiva, Shesh, everybody wants to be servant. So therefore, Advaitacharya is telling him, I started explaining this Yoga Vashishta. And what is this Yoga Vashishta? It is a Mayavad explanation. It is a Mayavad interpretation of the scriptures. And this scripture describes liberation as the ultimate goal of life. Mahaprabhu, when he heard this, he became so very angry. He came running and he entered the assembly where Advaitacharya was giving this discourse and he started kicking Advaitacharya with his feet on his chest. And Advaitacharya was in ecstasy. But the wife of Advaitacharya, Sita Thakurani, she started crying and pleading, please don't beat him, he'll die, he is an old man. And Advaitacharya is in bliss. And he's saying, today you have accepted me as your servant, my Lord. And then Mahaprabhu realized, oh, Advaitacharya has tricked me. So that's how Advaitacharya is telling to Kamalakant that when I was chastised by Mahaprabhu, I was so very happy to receive that chastisement. And he awarded the same punishment. He said, just like Mahaprabhu chastised Sri Mukunda once. And then he said he awarded the similar type of punishment to Mother Shachi Devi. So therefore, to get chastisement of Mahaprabhu is the most fortunate thing. That's what another episode comes when Jagadananda Pandit starts instructing Sanatan Goswami that you should go to Vrindavan. And when Sanatan Goswami, he went to Mahaprabhu and said, this Jagadanand Pandit, he is my so dear well-wisher. He is telling me to go to Vrindavan. I think I should follow. Mahaprabhu became so angry. He said, who is that Jaga? He's the Kalka Ladka, and he is giving instruction to you. You are able to become the guru of the whole world. And Sanatan Goswami, when he heard this, he said the same thing. He said, you are giving such, bitter, glorification to me, and you are giving sweet to this Jagadanand Pandit. Your chastisement is more sweet. Because when you chastise somebody, you chastise only that person whom you trust. And you have love for that person. You will not chastise any outsider. You will speak nice words to an outsider. So therefore, Sanatana Goswami is saying, you have accepted Jagadanand as yours. That's why you are chastising him. And you are giving me this Nimba Phala, this, very bitter neem fruit of glorification. So these are the various, pastimes where a person, when he is chastised, he's more happy. So Kamalakant, when he heard this, he became pacified. He said, oh, thank you, Advaitacharya. I'm so very relieved. Then Advaitacharya went to Mahaprabhu. And then he tells Lord Chaitanya that I cannot understand your pastimes. Your pastimes are all transcendental. You have shown, he is also speaking, Advaitacharya says the same thing to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Like Sanatana Goswami said, you have shown more favor to Kamalakant by chastising him. So it is so very difficult to understand that a person who gets chastisement is receiving more favor. Yes, because in our current, logical understanding, we may not be able to understand this. But that's what the scriptures say. That when you are chastised, that means you are corrected. Who corrects people in this world? People are going, at a high speed to hell. Nobody is there to correct them. By the mercy of the Lord, we have received the instructions from spiritual masters, from current acharyas, from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We have been chastised by the Guru Varga. That's why we are on the right path. So chastisement is very essential. So therefore, Advaitacharya is saying you are showing more mercy more favor to Kamalakant, and that's why you are, chastising him, and you are always glorifying me. So then he says, the favor you have shown to Kamalakant is so great that even to me you have never shown such favor. So that is the amazing thing, amazing level of reciprocation which is happening between the two gods, Advaitacharya and Mahaprabhu. He says, what offense I have committed? You are not showing me that mercy. So hearing this, Mahaprabhu, he started laughing. He was so very satisfied hearing these words from Advaitacharya. He started laughing. And he immediately called Kamalakant Vishwas. Because Mahaprabhu understood the heart of Advaitacharya. That he wants to be dear, intimate to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in, regular, our general understanding also, we see we will chastise only that person whom we trust. कि इसको मैं अगर डांटूंगा तो he will not go away. We will not, chastise a newcomer in Krishna consciousness, even if he commits some mistake, because we know that if we chastise this person, he'll go away. Even if he commits mistake, we don't chastise him. But when a person grows more older and mature in Krishna consciousness, he is chastised, he is corrected. That is the mercy. That means he is shown more favor. So Advaitacharya, he told Mahaprabhu, why have you called back this person Kamalakant? Because now Mahaprabhu called Kamalakant. So Advaitacharya is he's asking, why have you called him again? And you have allowed him to see you again? So he says, yes, cheated me in two ways. Advaitacharya is telling about Kamalakant Vishwas. He says, he has cheated me in two ways. So when Mahaprabhu heard this, he was very satisfied. Only he could understand the inner meaning of Advaitacharya. How Kamalakant Vishwas cheated him, nobody could understand. Only Mahaprabhu could understand. Mahaprabhu then started instructing very, very strongly to Kamalakant Vishwas. Amazing thing is, the various instructions which Mahaprabhu gives to Kamalakant Vishwas, they may not exactly relate to what he did. But Mahaprabhu gave such strong instructions to Kamalakant Vishwas, and through Kamalakant Vishwas, he was instructing to all the disciples, all the devotees of future generations to come. Kaviraj Goswami himself tells that everybody assembled there considered that Mahaprabhu has instructed me through Kamalakant Vishwas. Mahaprabhu tells Kamalakant, he says, you are a Bauliya. Bauliya means one who does not know things, how they are. He's a whimsical personality, He says, why are you acting in this way? Why are you invading in the privacy of Advaitacharya? And why are you damaging the regulative principles, religious principles? Who are you to tell the whole world that he's a Supreme Lord and he's a beggar and he has some debt? So Mahaprabhu is telling him that you have established Advaitacharya as Supreme Lord, and then you are telling that he is under debt. This is a contradictory thing. How can Supreme Lord be under debt? So therefore, Prabhupada writes that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is never satisfied by any contradiction, rasabhas. So wherever there is a conflict and contradictory rasas, Mahaprabhu doesn't like that. If somebody is Supreme Lord, how can he be beggar? How can he be under debt? And then he says, your mind has become polluted. Please be very careful. And then how Kamalakant Vishwas's mind is polluted, that is not described here. But Mahaprabhu now gives a general principle, and very, very famous, very, very important verses are coming here now. Pratigraha kabhuna karibe rajdhan vishaira anna khaila dushta hailaman. He says, you are begging the king that please give me money so that I can liquidate the debt of Advaitacharya. You know what will happen? Vishaira anna khaila dushta hoila man. Please never accept anything in charity from rich man and a king if he is a Vishayi. Although Prataprudra Maharaj is not a Vishayi, he is the greatest of the devotee. He is a pure devotee. Mahaprabhu himself accepts him later. But still, here Mahaprabhu is setting the standards for all the future devotees to come. Vishaira anna khaila dushta hoila man. If we accept something from a materialistic person, then the mind will become polluted. So Prabhupada writes, it is very risky to accept money or food from materialistic persons, because such acceptance makes the mind polluted. Whoever accepts such food or such money from a materialistic person, it doesn't come free, it comes with the consciousness of that person. If a person is a Vishay, by accepting that food or taking the charity, we will be affected by those, tendencies. So therefore, Prabhupada writes, according to Vedic injunction, we should accept charity only One should give charity only to Brahmanas and sannyasis. And one should accept charity from one who is very pious. So very high standards Mahaprabhu has set. So one should be very, very careful when we are taking charity and when we are giving charity, whom to give charity and whom to take charity from. As Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, the various types of charity. Datavyam iti yaddanam diyate nupakarine deshe kale cha patrita cha taddanam satvikam smritam. The charity should be given according to the time, place, and circumstance. One should not give charity whimsically. It is very, very important to understand to whom you are giving charity. If a person is alcoholic and a drunkard and a smoker and a drug addict, and if you give charity to that person, then by that money, he'll buy the same drugs, same alcohol, same, intoxicants, and we will be implicated. Similarly, if we take charity from somebody, we should be really careful. To such an extent, Prabhupada writes in the Nectar of Instructions purport, unless you are competent enough, we should not accept charity from Mayavadis and atheists, even for religious purposes. So we should be competent enough, unless we are instructed by someone, or we have Varadhasta, of some great devotee who is saying, okay, please, get some donations, we'll get affected. So we have to be really careful. So therefore, Prabhupada writes that one should be very careful. And then he says, one should not also accept disciples unless they follow the 4 regulative principles. Prabhupada says nowadays it is so very common that you go to any person and he will not even ask, what are your habits? Are you following some principles? He'll just say, give some donation and, just take this mantra and chant. It is very, very dangerous. So Prabhupada is writing there, a Vaishnava should not accept even disciples unless they don't follow the regulative principles. And what will happen later? Manadushta hoile nahe Krishnera smaran, Krishna smriti vinuhay nishphala jivan. So when you eat something, when you take something in charity from a Vishay, then mind will become contaminated. And then Manadushta hoile nahe Krishnera smaran. And when the mind is contaminated, we cannot remember Krishna. Very difficult to remember Krishna when mind is contaminated. That's why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that if you want to practice bhakti with determination and with steadiness, please give up all the sinful ways of living. Yesham tu antagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajante mam dridhaprataha. Antagatam papa. Unless one gives up the sinful tendencies, jananam punya karmanam, and acts in a pious way, dharmic way, te dvandva moha nirmukta. That person can become free from dualities of this world. Bhajate mam dridhavrata. Anybody can practice bhakti, but most of us realize that I'm not studying Krishna consciousness. Sometimes we are on the very high levels of our consciousness. Sometimes we are thinking we are so fallen. The sine wave goes on, ups and downs. Ghanatarala. Why? Because somewhere we are having some sinful thoughts or some sinful practices for young devotees, for newcomers. So it is all a process of purification from gross sinful things to the subtle sinful things. So till the time we are completely free from all this, the ups and downs will go on, and we have to just tolerate while practicing Krishna consciousness. Tantitikshasva Bharata. Man dushta hoile nahe Krishnera smaran, Krishna smriti vinuhay nishphala jivan. And if you forget Krishna, then the life is waste. What is the purpose of life if we can't remember Krishna? The body is a dead body if we can't remember Krishna. Bhagavatam describes second canto. The head, which is decorated with a huge turban, becomes a burden if it is not bowing down in front of the Lord. That turban is like a heavy crown which is put on the person who is drowning in the ocean. It will become the cause of the death. So therefore, if we can't remember Krishna, everything else is a waste. That's what Shukadeva Goswami says. That whatever you achieve in this life, if it is not offered to Krishna, it is all waste. It is Shrama eva hi kevalam. Idam hi pumsa tapasa shutasya va swishtasya suktasya cha buddhi dattayoh. Avichyuto artha kavibhur nirupito yaduttama shloka gunanuvarnanam. All our skills, our knowledge, our abilities to remember verses, our scholarship, our tendency to do tapasya, ability to do sacrifices, charity, whatever we have, we should use it for glorification of Krishna. Otherwise, we will not get the result, will not be benefited. It will be just a useless waste of labor, because that will not bring one close to Krishna. And if it is not bringing one close to Krishna, Krishna smriti vinohay nishphala jivan, life is waste. So Prabhupada writes a very strong purport there. He says, devotee should be always alert, very alert. And then he writes a very wonderful word. He says, one should keep his mind in a sanguine state so that he can always remember Krishna. What is a sanguine state? Sanguine state means one should be optimistic. Everything will come out fine. That is called a devotee, optimist. Asha bandha. Avashya rakshibe Krishna iti vishwas palan. That is a sanguine state. Optimistic. If you are not an optimist, you are an atheist. Only an atheist will say, oh, nothing will come out fine. So many problems are in life. I am always getting defeated with my senses. So many anarthas are troubling me. Devotee is always optimist. I may have fallen 1,000 times, but still I'll get up and walk. That is a devotee. Bhuma skalita padanam bhuma veva avalambanam tvai jata paradhanam tameva sharanam prabho. It is not a failure if we fall, but if we don't get up. So we have to again get up and walk. That is a sanguine state. That is an optimist. So Prabhupada writes, one should be always alert, not getting affected. Just like a small forest animal, always alert. A small forest animal is always alert because he knows everybody around us is bigger than me and I can be, devoured by anyone. Therefore, he is always alert. Similarly, a devotee should be always alert because Maya Devi, who is she and who are we? We are just insignificant ants in front of the, gigantic power of Maya Devi. We should be always alert. Always taking shelter of Krishna, always taking shelter of devotees. On our own, we cannot do anything. Eka kiya mar nahi pai bala harinama sankirtane. Tumi kripa kari shraddha bindu diya deho Krishna nama dhane. So we are just depending on devotees, praying to devotees, always careful, not offending them. Taking shelter of the sleepers of the devotees, It is described that some people take shelter of jnana, some people take shelter of karma. The devotee says, I take shelter of the sleepers of the devotees. Jnana avalambaka kechit, kechit karma avalambaka, vayam tu haridasanam padatrana avalambaka, padatrana avalambaka. That is a sanguine state. Depending on the devotees, always be optimistic, asha bandha. In that state, Prabhupada writes, we can always remember Krishna. He quotes a verse from second canto of Bhagavatam. Shukdev Goswami is answering, what should a person be remembering always, chanting always? Tasmad Bharat Sarvatma Bhagwan Ishvaro Hari Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Smartavyascha Ichchata Abhayam. O King Parikshit, therefore you should always Shrotavya, hear, Smartavya, remember, Kirtitavya, chant the glories of the Supreme Lord, who is known as Bhagwan, Ishvara and Hari. Prabhupada writes, this is the summary of all activities of a Vaishnava. That is a devotee. And Prabhupada writes, this is the same instruction which is given here by Kaviraj Goswami. Krishna Smriti Vinu Hoye Nishpala Jivan, because that is the purpose of life. Shrotavya, Kirtitavyasya, Smartavyascha Ichchata Abhayam. That will make one fearless. Then Prabhupada quotes another very important thing. He writes that a devotee, he should be always careful not to waste time. Krishna Smriti Vinu should not happen even for a moment. Avyartha Kalatvam, somehow or other we have to mold our life in such a way that we have to do our daily routine activities, we have to go to job, we have to do our studies, those who are students, we have to take care of the family, we have to take care of our finances, everything. But as soon as we get time, are we turning to Krishna or are we turning to cricket, politics, all other news? So what is our shelter? So the moment we get time, if we are not wasting time and thinking of Krishna, that is avyartha kalatvam. That is a symptom of a devotee. Prabhupada writes there. That is a symptom of a Vaishnava. But if you are associating with a Vishay, then the mind becomes contaminated. Asat sang tyagai Vaishnavachar. Then Mahaprabhu continues. Lokalajja hoye dharma kirti hoye hani aiche karma na kari ha kabhu nahi jani. He is continuing his instructions to Kamalakant Vishwas. He says, you know what will happen next if you behave in this way? If you eat or if you take charity from a Vishay, your mind will be contaminated. Your life will be waste. And then what else will happen? Lokalajja. People will ridicule you. People will insult you, make fun of you. Lokalajja hoye. You will become unpopular. And dharma kirti hoy hani, your religious principle will be lost, your fame will be lost. Therefore, please, you are a Vaishnava. Aiche karma na koriha. Please don't behave in this way. A Vaishnava is one who acts according to instruction of spiritual master. You should never act in a whimsical way. One should be very conscious. Oh, sorry. So that's how Mahaprabhu is instructing. As Aiche karma kabhu na koriho. And then Kaviraj Goswami speaks a very important verse there. Ei siksha sabakare sabe mane koila acharya gosai mane ananda paila. So when Mahaprabhu is instructing Kamalakant Vishwas, all the other assembled, they are not thinking, Arey, Mahaprabhu is giving chastisement to him. We are not on the receiving end. Everybody considered that Mahaprabhu is instructing me. Ei siksha sabakare sabe mane koila. Everybody imbibed the instructions of Mahaprabhu. So whenever somebody is instructed, Lord instructs entire world through one person. One time, Radhanath Swami Maharaj was giving a class, and one of our devotees, he asked, Maharaj, sometimes ants are crawling on the road, and it is very difficult when sometimes we step on them, and we become so very sinful. Then how should we avoid this violence, Maharaj? And he was really, serious. And Mahaprabhu said, yes, actually it is very, very important to understand that one should not be violent to other living entities. And then Maharaj, he went on to explain, and especially in a grihastha life, a husband should not be violent towards wife or other family members. And then he went on explaining the relationship with between husband and wife for next 45 minutes. And after 45 minutes, Maharaj asks this person, did it answer your question? And everybody started laughing. And then Mahaprabhu said, even if it didn't answer your question, it answered questions of many. So therefore, whenever a great devotees or the Lord answers something, he answers for the welfare of people in general. So that's how Mahaprabhu, through Kamalakant Vishwas, he is instructing every one of us the principles, the duties of a devotee. Then Kaviraj Goswami continues, he says, only Mahaprabhu could understand the intentions of Advaitacharya. And Advaitacharya, he appreciated the grave instructions that Mahaprabhu gave to Kamalakant Vishwas. And then he says, Kaviraj Goswami says, actually in this statement, there are many confidential meanings. But I am not writing them all because the book will become too voluminous. So we cannot even imagine what all jewels of realizations were there in the hearts of these great devotees. Kaviraj Goswami himself tells, I am just explaining the drop of a wave of the ocean of Mahaprabhu's pastimes. Gupta Bhava Sindhu Brahma Napa Eka Bindu. Even Brahmaji cannot fathom the drop of the pastimes of Mahaprabhu. And whatever Mahaprabhu has performed pastimes, Swarup Damodar Goswami, he saw, he noted, and then he gave to Teho Thoila Raghunathe Kanthe. Taha kichu e shinilu, taha iha vistarilu, bhakta gana dilu ei bhete. So I'm just tasting the drop of the nectar, drop of the wave of the ocean. So therefore the instructions are unlimited. So then after this, Kaviraj Goswami continues, the fifth branch of the Advaita tree, and that is Sri Yadunandan Acharya. So this fifth branch, it had so many branches and the sub branches that it is impossible to count them all. That means he had so many disciples. Yadunandan Acharya, he was official spiritual master of Raghunath Das when he was a householder. Raghunath Das Goswami, when he was a householder, he was initiated by Yadunandan Acharya. And then later he surrendered to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So who was this Yadunandan Acharya? So Yadunandan Acharya, he was a disciple of Vasudeva Datta, the famous personality, who asked Mahaprabhu that let me suffer for the sins of all the living entities. That is Vasudeva Datta. So Yadunandan Acharya, he received special mercy of Vasudeva Datta, and therefore he accepted Mahaprabhu with all his hearts, and he could accept Mahaprabhu from various angles of vision. Vasudeva Datterate ho kripar bhajan, sarva bhave ashriya che Caitanya charan, sarva bhave ashriya che. So he accepted Mahaprabhu as supreme shelter in all the conditions of life. So not that, okay, this much is for me and this much is for Krishna. Completely depending on Krishna, completely depending on Mahaprabhu in all circumstances. So that is the aspiration which we should have. That is what is given by our acharyas. Avashya Rakshibe Krishna iti Vishwas Palan. That is the ultimate ideal we have to reach to. So in current context, people, they have many shelters. People think, oh, my family is my shelter. My wife, my husband, my wealth, my property, my relatives, my bank balance, they are my shelter. But Bhagavatam says they are all fallible shelters. Deha patya kalatradishu atma sainyashu asatsu api tesham pramatto nidhanam pashyannapi na pashyati. They are fallible soldiers. Asatsu. They will never last. So how can they protect others? So if somebody takes their shelter, then they'll be frustrated. Sarva bhave ashriya che chaitanya charan. So that is our aspiration. That is what we should be looking for. To surrender to Krishna, to depend on Krishna, to make Krishna and Mahaprabhu as our shelter. Because Bhagavatam says that unless we do it, we will not be protected. Because Mare Krishna Rakhe Krishna Mare ke. If Krishna wants to save you, who can kill him? And if he wants to kill, who can save? Prahlad Maharaj himself tells, a child cannot be protected by the parents if the child is neglected by the Supreme Lord. A doctor cannot save a patient if he is not protected by the Supreme Lord. A boat cannot take a person across the ocean if he is not protected by the Supreme Lord. Balasya neha sharanam pitarau narasimha nartasya chagadamudanvati majjato nau taptasya tat pratividhiryahi sheshta tavad vibho tanubhritam tadupekshitanam. Anybody who is neglected by Krishna, he can never be safe in this world. Ultimate insurance policy is given only by Krishna. No insurance policy is Jindagi ke saath bhi, Jindagi ke baad bhi. Only insurance policy is Krishna's policy. Neha Vikramanashvasti. So therefore, this Yadunandan Acharya, he had taken complete shelter. Sarva bhave ashriyache Chaitanya charan. Then Kaviraj Goswami lists down the various other devotees of Advaita Acharya. He doesn't describe them much. He says Bhagavat Acharya, Vishnu Das Acharya, Chakrapani Acharya, and Ananta Acharya. These are 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th branches. So Bhagavat Acharya, he was counted as the followers of Advaita Acharya, and later he was also counted as the follower of Gadadhar Pandit. And he is a Manjari from spiritual world, Shweta Manjari, Bhagavat Acharya. Then there is another personality called Ananta Acharya. He's Gopi, Sudevi. So who is this Ananta Acharya? He is a spiritual master of Haridas Pandit. If you all remember, Haridas Pandit is a head priest of Govinda Dev Mandir. Haridas Pandit, spiritual master of Ganga Mata Goswamini, Haridas Pandit. His spiritual master is Ananta Acharya. Haridas Thakur, Haridas Pandit is described in great details that he had all the good qualities. Vaishnava Gunagrahi, na dekhaye dosh, Kai Mano Vakya Kore Vaishnava Santosh. He was not seeing faults in anyone. Shushil, Sahishnu, Shant, Vadanya, Gambhir, Madhur Vachana, Madhur Cheshta, Mahadhir. So many good qualities of Haridas. He is a disciple of Anantacharya. Anantacharya was Sudevi. Then Kaviraj Goswami describes names of various other devotees from 10th branch to 36 branches. He just takes the names of all the devotees, Nandini, Kamadev, Chaitanya Das, and he goes on to describe various other names. And then in 65th verse, he says, Vijay Pandit and Sri Ram Pandit. They were the two another important branches. After taking the names of all the other devotees, Purushottam Pandit, Raghunath Pandit, Vanmali Kaviraj, Kavichandra, Vaidyanath, Loknath Pandit, Murari Pandit, Hari Charan, Madhav Pandit, all these names are described by Kaviraj Goswami as the branches of Advaita Acharya tree. And then after taking the names of all these in 65th verse, he says, Vijay Pandit are Pandita Sri Ram, Asankh Advaita Shakha Kotolaibanam. अरे इधर branches of Advaitacharya are unlimited. अरे कितने लोगों का नाम लूंगा? Ananta Shakha, unlimited branches. So who is this Sri Ram Pandit? Sri Ram Pandit is the younger brother of Srivas Acharya, Srivas Thakur. Srivas Pandit is Narad Muni, and Sri Ram Pandit is Parvat Muni, the most intimate friend of Narad Muni. So that is Sri Ram Pandit. Then Kaviraj Goswami continues. Advaitacharya, the branch of Advaita, received the water which is supplied by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu is watering this tree with his own desire, with his own mercy. Two places we have heard, Ichha Pani and Kripa Jal. So one place Kaviraj Goswami describes that he is watering this tree with his desire. And another place he says he's watering this tree with his mercy. Kripa Jal and Ichha Pani. So Advaita branch is receiving this water of Mahaprabhu's mercy, and therefore this branch was flourishing. And it was full of fruits and flowers. Unlimited fruits and flowers were growing on this tree, on this branch. Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport that this Advaita branch, it became, two groups. One group was bona fide branch, and another was a pretentious branch. The bona fide branches, they followed the instructions of Advaitacharya, and as a result, they flourished. They become more and more and more, luxuriantly full of fruits and flowers. But the pretentious branch, what happened to them? They perished. Anyone who is not connected to Guru Parampara, anyone who is not following the instructions of Guru Parampara, ultimately he will perish. If we don't have faith, if we don't have trust in our acharyas, we'll ultimately perish. There was a great Sanskrit scholar in ISKCON movement in 1970s, Nitai Das. Very, very powerful person, very scholar. And he was very expert in Sanskrit. And Srila Prabhupada told him that you just study all the scriptures and translate them into English. And he was reading so many scriptures. But because of some unfortune, he started associating with some bogus sadhus at Radhakund. And they started criticizing Srila Prabhupada. They started criticizing Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And as a result, this person, Nitai Das, was such a powerful Sanskrit scholar, he became completely deviated. One day he comes to Srila Prabhupada and says, Srila Prabhupada, please give me a blessing so that I can find somebody who can give me higher instructions than you. And then he said, actually, I don't believe Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He has cheated. Who knows how he took sannyas, And when Srila Prabhupada, he heard all this, he became so angry. His lower lip started quivering and trembling. And devotees, they knew that whenever Prabhupada is very angry, his lower lip starts trembling. And then he started explaining to this Nitai Das that, how can you think like this? What purpose Saraswati Thakur, would have in cheating others? He is the one personality who was known as Lion Simha Guru. And when Gaur Kishore Babaji left his body, everybody, all these sadhus in Navadip, they wanted to take care and get the body of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji and make samadhi, because they would get so many donations. Saraswati Thakur, and then police also came because it was really becoming very dangerous. Saraswati Thakur, he told, okay, I'll allow them to touch my Guru Maharaj's body if they have not contacted a woman in 1 year. Nobody came forward. 6 months. So police, they became shocked. What are you saying? What if they lie? Saraswati Thakur says, I believe them. I'll believe their words. 1 month, 1 week, 3 days, nobody came forward. So Prabhupada said, just see, that is the caliber of my guru, and you are telling that he has cheated us. And then somehow lots of very strong words Prabhupada spoke, and then he was sent away. And then Prabhupada told Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he'll not be liberated for many kalpas. So therefore, anybody who doesn't follow the instructions, he'll be perished. Then Kaviraj Goswami describes the ungrateful branches. What happened to these ungrateful branches? He says, after the disappearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, many branches, for some unfortunate reasons, they deviated. A person who does not come to Krishna consciousness is unfortunate. Who comes to Krishna consciousness, most fortunate. But one who comes to Krishna consciousness, practices for some time, and then leaves because of some ill luck, he is the most unfortunate person. So by mercy of Srila Prabhupada, we have become most fortunate. What we have to do is just remain fortunate. Just be there. Just keep hanging on what a mango has to do, just be there on the branch. And it will be mature, ripened. So if we hang on to the process of Krishna consciousness, we'll be purified, we'll be mature, we'll be free of all our anarthas. Just we have to be there. Jivetu yo mukti pade sadaya bhak. That's what Prabhupada tells. What a son has to do to inherit the property of the father, just be alive. You have to just be alive in Krishna consciousness. So that is important. So that is our fortune. We have got this process of Krishna consciousness. We have become so fortunate, as Rupa Goswami tells in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, by some unimaginable good fortune, one gets bhakti. Ya kenapi ati bhagyena jata shraddhasya sevane na nirvinno nati sakto bhakti yogasya siddhida. So by some unimaginable good fortune, one gets bhakti. So fortune is there. Ati bhagyena means unimaginable, extreme good fortune. What is that extreme good fortune? Jiva Goswami writes there, the association of devotees. The chance to associate with devotees is the fortune. Unimaginable, extreme good fortune. After many, many, many lifetimes, one gets association of devotees. It is so very rare. Bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate. How a jnani becomes a devotee? When he comes in touch with devotee. Only devotee can give devotion. Bhaktya sanjayate bhakti. So therefore, these branches, by some unfortunate reasons, they left. They could not continue. And these branches, they did not accept the truth. They did not accept the philosophy, instructions of Mahaprabhu, instructions of Advaita Acharya. Therefore, they became ungrateful. A person who is ungrateful, he can never grow in Krishna consciousness. That's what Kaviraj Goswami is saying here, because they were ungrateful. So, as Radhanath Swami Maharaj was saying once, that to be grateful is not a part of Krishna consciousness. To be grateful is Krishna consciousness. Be grateful for whatever we have received in our life. Nothing belongs to us. Everything is given by Krishna. Our skills, our abilities to manage, to speak, to sing, to write, to cook, whatever we have achieved, it is all mercy of the Lord, mercy of the devotees. Nothing belongs to us. Tad vaidhanushtai shavaratho hayaste soham rathi nipatayastadanamanti sarvam shanena tadabudha sadishariktam bhasmam bhutam kuhakaradhamivoptamushyam. Arjuna, when Krishna departed from this world, he was saying, this is the same Gandiva, same chariot, same horses. I am the same warrior, but still, because Krishna has gone, I have become powerless. It is like putting ghee in the ashes, putting seeds on the barren land. It is like an offering which is which is seen by a crow. It's all useless. So whatever we have, it is all given by the Lord. So we have to be grateful. So Kaviraj Goswami says they became ungrateful, therefore they deviated. And therefore the branch, the trunk, original trunk became angry. Mahaprabhu became angry on them. So if we are not grateful for whatever we have received, we will not receive the mercy of the Lord. We can never repay the debt, but at least we can show our gratitude. Bhagavatam describes, if somebody tries to repay the debt to their authorities, to the Guru Varga, he becomes a joker. We know the patram. So we can never repay the debt, but we can be just grateful. But because these groups were ungrateful, Mahaprabhu became very angry. And when Mahaprabhu becomes angry, what happens? He didn't sprinkle the water, right? If the gardener becomes angry on one tree, he'll not put water on that tree, right? So he didn't water these branches and they withered away. They didn't receive the waters of the mercy of Mahaprabhu and therefore they died. So only way we can flourish in Krishna consciousness by getting mercy of the Lord, mercy of the devotees. And to get mercy of the devotees, we have to be grateful. We have to be humble. So therefore, Kaviraj Goswami then speaks, Caitanya rahita deha shushka kashta sam jivite mrita say dande tarayam. Caitanya rahita deha. Kaviraj Goswami, Srila Prabhupada writes a very important purport there. Caitanya rahita, a person without Caitanya. That means consciousness. What is that consciousness? Krishna consciousness. Caitanya rahita deha shushka kashtha sam. It is like a dead body or a dry wood. The jivita imrit say, he is as good as dead only. A person who has no Krishna consciousness, he is as good as dead. Dande tara yam, and he'll be punished by this Yamraj. So we'll be discussing this verse in the next class. So tomorrow we won't be having class. So we'll continue next week. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami ki jai. Anybody has any questions? Okay, so we'll stop here. No questions. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.